Hey ladies, welcome to episode 31. And let me tell you, this is perfectly timed for the crisis we are in right now. I know I hate to use that word crisis, but the reality is there are moments in the day, if not many moments, that feel like crisis, that feel the weight of that. And specifically, they can feel like crisis in your relationship. Today, I have a wonderful guest. Shirani Pathak is a licensed therapist and she specializes in working with couples. Now, she has a brick and mortar therapy practice in San Jose, California. She does work virtually with anyone in California, but what she's done for us now is create this virtual workshop that she's turning into a class for anyone to take. It's called Connecting in Crisis: How to Grow Together Instead of Kill Each Other During Times of Uncertainty. Oh yeah, it's good. Now, don't despair. If you're not in a relationship and yet you still come on and you love this podcast, first of all, I love you right back. Second of all, don't worry. There's definitely things in here that will apply to you, whether it's your own heart hug or some work you can do within your own thought process. Ladies, this episode is perfect for right now. So maybe you just want to listen to it by yourself, or maybe this is the one you say, hey, sweetie, come listen to a podcast episode with me. Now, you've probably already noticed it's a little longer than my normal content. Most of my interviews, yeah, they do take a little bit longer because I'm a girl in a conversation with another woman who's doing amazing things. But let me tell you, there are some golden nuggets, some key takeaways you are going to want to get from this podcast. All right, so buckle in. Let's take some time together so that we can actually grow together instead of apart during this time. Welcome to the Health, Life, and More for Women podcast with certified health and life coach, mom of four, and just all-around lover of all things 80s, your host, Jennifer D'Amato. Buckle in, let's get started. Shirani, I am so glad to have you here on the podcast today. Thank you so much for joining us.
You are so welcome. I'm really excited and jazzed and enthused to be here. I love your podcast, Jennifer. It's just like, it cracks me up, and I'm really excited to be here.
And I'm not really even that funny, which is awesome.
Which is funny because you think you're not funny, but that was funny right there. Like, I'm really honored to be here and share with your listeners about what we're digging into today. It's going to be really juicy.
I agree. And I really do want to just let the listeners know that when you and I first met, which, I mean, we are part of the virtual world already, you and I, that's how we connected. And we had this direction we were going, and we were so lit up, and we were like, yeah, we're gonna talk about this because you have this amazing book, which I'll get into later. But I was just on fire. I told you, like, the word authentic, like, lights me up. Oh my God, I have to brace myself not to go there. But this pandemic, the world we're living in, shifted everything, including our conversation for today.
Yeah, and I was equally lit up and jazzed and excited. And then it was like, oh, wow, what are we going to do now? I mean, I could still talk about that, and I'm excited to still talk about that. And, how can we serve our people in a bigger way right now, And so I shot off that email saying, Jennifer, if you want to switch it up, I'm so happy to do whatever you want. So I'm really grateful that we get to show up today and really speak to what's going on for our listeners, our women, and our couples, especially right now. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. When I saw your email come through and you're like, okay, I'm creating this workshop. You're doing this live workshop that's happening, soon, actually, while we're recording here. It's coming up. And when the listeners hear it, we'll talk a little bit more about how they can get the information and access everything. You'd send me this email, and I literally jumped up in my seat, excited, because your heart is to serve people where they are right now. And that is like,
Hmm.
yes, that's what we should be doing right now, is how can we serve those that need us right now, that need the work that you're doing. And right now, couples need what you're doing right now.
Hmm.
Having been forced, like, I'm sure a lot of my listeners right now are nodding their heads going, yeah, I'm one of those women who all of a sudden has my husband, my partner at home with me all day long. Oh, and I'm not going out to work. The kids are home. Everybody's in this space now all day long, every day. And we don't have that feeling of, well, light at the end of the tunnel. No one's really sure where that is right now. So we're mixing all these feelings with uncertainty and living in it, and not really necessarily having the strategies and tools to do it well. So we need Shirani, because this woman is amazing working with couples. And you've created this online workshop, which oh my gosh, it's so good. Can I tell them the title of this workshop?
Yes, absolutely, you can.
Okay, ladies, it's called Connecting in Crisis: How to Grow Together Instead of Kill Each Other During Times of Uncertainty. Now, come on. Come on, that's so good. Shirani, tell me a little bit about where you came up with this title and what's going on here.
Mm, well, I love hearing it out loud from someone else. It cracks me up and it makes me chuckle because, out here in California where I live and work, we're going on week 3 now, I think. It'll be a month actually by the time the podcast goes out. And there are those moments where it's like, oh my gosh, everything is so aggravating. And it's like, I could just kill you. I mean, not really, but that thought just creeps in, and when I was asking a group of my colleagues and friends what would be a great title for this class I'm doing, and one woman said, how to not murder your husband right now. And I just knew that was the title, or some, modification of that, because this feeling is very real. And if you've had that thought, like, you're not alone. We're now in a time where, Jennifer, just like you said, our lives have totally shifted and gone upside down and inside out, whereas you may have had a few moments of peace during your day. Now everyone is all together 24/7 nonstop for most of us throughout the world, and so there's going to be those moments where we just hit our capacity, and we have no more bandwidth. And then you're like, I could just freaking kill you right now because you're breathing wrong. Like the littlest things can start to pile up. And so just to normalize for people that it's okay that you might be feeling that way. We'd be having another conversation if you actually had a plan in place and all those other things, because that's not cool. But if you've had the passing thought and realized, like, oh my gosh, yeah, I'm really stressed and agitated and like really just getting nitpicky and frustrated over stupid things right now, then you're not alone.
Oh, yes. I can't say I've had the kill each other thought, but I've had the you drink water really loudly thought. Like,
Mm-hmm.
really loudly. And those who follow my account on social media know I gave up my office, like my pretty decorated home office, for my husband, because he's had to shift, to working at home. I already work at home, and I gave up my space so he could have closed door meetings. And yeah, okay, I love him. And I don't mind doing it, but it does start to wear on you, right? Like it really does, even in those kind gestures. It's my space. Our space has shifted, and you feel this weight of it again when it was originally for us. And you might have experienced this too, Shirani, where you're like, oh, okay, we have a couple weeks of this, I can do anything for a couple of weeks. And then it's like, okay, maybe there's another couple more the rest of March. Okay, I can get through this. And now it's like, okay, now you have to get through the rest of April. And now I'm like, wait a minute, are you just keeping, pushing this forward? And there's not, again, like I said before, that feeling that I know when this is ending, which actually adds to the stress, adds to those feelings. Like, how long am I going to have to do this together, all of us in the same space?
Mhm.
We don't know.
Yeah, and a lot of that uncertainty, Jennifer, is what's contributing to that edge that we're feeling right now, like that itch and that edge and that irritability, because I think it would be a disservice for me not to say that we're experiencing a collective trauma right now. As an entire world right now, we are going through something very traumatic. And when we experience really traumatic things and there's a lot of uncertainty involved, one of the trauma responses is to get frustrated, or I've been talking about it as the fight response kicks in, fight, flight, freeze. And the fight response kicks in when we start to get that irritability leaking out sideways. And that's what we're in right now. And when we know that, like, oh, this is an experience that we're all going through. Okay, this is a time of uncertainty. Yeah, it's scary being in uncertainty, and it's scary not knowing how long this is going to go on or what's going to happen or any of that other stuff. And it's just important for us to recognize and have that shift in our thinking, going from like super like to remembering that once again, we're all experiencing this, and uncertainty is one of the biggest triggers for any type of traumatic experience. I think that's really important to name.
Yeah. And you're saying something that really is getting me thinking, is that I'm experiencing the uncertainty, the stress, almost the fatigue from all of that, right? I'm going through all of that and having the different emotions, and I need to even remember, so is my husband, my partner, my
Yes.
best friend sitting here in this house, having to work from home. He's going through that as well. It's not just me.
Yeah, and so are your kids,
Yeah.
right? Because our kids, like adults, we have different ways that we can handle those big feelings when they come up. Like we have a little bit more life experience with being in uncertainty or dealing with uncertainty. And our kids are also going through the same thing, if you have them. And so you might notice that they also could be a little bit more irritable, especially now as like they're not going to school, they're not seeing their friends, they're not getting their contact with other adults and other safe people in their lives, right? And so I think it's important to just name that as well, that our kids also, if you have them, are going through this. And I appreciate what you're saying, Jennifer, about when we can remember that we're all going through this, it helps invite in a level of compassion for ourselves and those that we are sheltering in place with, the people that we love.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Compassion. I love that word. It actually just makes me feel relaxed when you said that. Like, we need to have that level of
Hmm.
compassion for ourselves, for those we're sharing this, what starts to feel like a smaller space each week, space with. Um, I just think that's such a good something to be mindful of. And it's not that I don't think about, right? And I'm sure my listeners are the same way, where it's not, we're not thinking about the other person. We know our, husband, our spouse, our partner, like they're in the house with us. Like we get it. But I think when we're feeling these things so deeply and we're going through this process, we're just not readily thinking, right, they're struggling too. Like, even though we know it, we're just not mindful because we're so inundated with our own thoughts about it.
Yeah, which again, and actually we're going to be diving into this in the class. And I'm going to just name that again is a trauma response. Like when we go into that place, we're not thinking about anybody else. We're thinking about ourselves. If we think about evolution and why the fight, flight, freeze response exists, it's for our own survival, right? And in that, it's not necessarily our survival as a species or as a unit. It's like my survival. And that's just how the brain is wired. We just go to that place where when we're scared or when we're agitated, which often is, scared is underlying that. But when we go into that place, our brain, Dan Siegel has this model of the brain that's really awesome. And if you make a fist with your hands and you put your thumb against your palm, and then you put the other four fingers on top of that, covering it, that covering of those four fingers, like that's our prefrontal cortex. That's where our brain is actually like, that's when we're in our functional adult self. That's when we're in our higher reasoning. But when we get scared and when we get uncertain, those four fingers flip up, exposing that inner part of the brain that's our survival brain. And when we're in that survival brain, we're really not thinking about anyone but us. And how am I going to get through this? How am I going to make it through? And that's why, like, when we can remember to connect with compassion, our brain comes back online, and we shift out of that fight, flight, freeze place into, okay, we're all in this together, and I can have compassion for the others that I love, that I'm sharing space with in this really uncertain time. And then we can use that as a point of connection instead of disconnection and causing damage in our relationships.
That's so good. And I know I'm not the only one who heard Shirani explain that and actually put my fist and the thumb under the fingers. And then I opened it up when you said to have that illustration. That was so good. I'm actually going to use that as an anchor, to be able, a reminder. I love this little, it's on me. I can just have that here. And what I kept thinking as I did this was how protective, when that thumb is covered, how protected you feel, even in your thoughts and in yourself and safety. And then when that's open, you feel exposed.
Yes. Oh, I'm getting goosebumps as you say that. I've never thought of it that way. And you are absolutely spot on. And what do we do when we feel exposed? We want to do whatever we can to defend ourselves and fight for our own survival. And I just love that image of when it's, when our prefrontal cortex, when our brain is back online, that's our connections actually help us feel safe. And I just listened to something today, and it was Terry Real. He is an amazing relationship therapist. I've trained with him for the past several years, and he was having a conversation with a gentleman by the name of Thomas. I can't say the last name, Hubel. And Thomas shared in this training that there's actually research now that the front part of the vagus nerve, which is where our central nervous system and like what calms us, that the front part of that actually helps us soothe. And the example he gave was mothers and babies. Like, where do babies nestle onto their mamas? Chest to chest usually, right? Front to front. And that is so soothing for us. And it helps calm our bodies, it helps calm our brains, and it helps soothe us so that we can be connected again. And so speaking of connection, when we have that protective part of our brain back on in the safe, connected, nurturing kind of way, it also enables us to be able to connect with the people in our environments. Like, I don't know if you've ever had that, like when giving a hug to somebody, like just how good that heart to heart, chest to chest hug feels. And that also helps us to come back into our connected bodies and brains, so that we're not in that exposed, scary fighting and doing anything I can to keep myself safe in a false kind of way.
Gosh, it's so funny we're talking about this because somebody just put up a question. I think it was on Facebook. A friend of mine said, just trying to think positive, what's the first thing you're going to do when all of this is over and we can all come out of these cocoons we've been in and all of that. And my response, I wrote as clear as day, was I'm going to hug everyone I see. Like, I meant every word of that. There's something about that connection piece for me. I mean, and I'm talking full frontal hugs. None of this side
Yes.
business. I am full frontal hugging people. Because I feel the disconnect right now. I do all the virtual. I'm great with that, and I can get a piece, but gosh, you are so right. Like that full frontal connection, which makes me now want to hug my husband. We haven't had any issues yet, but I want to just full frontal hug him just to have that moment in the midst of the craziness. And I do that with my kids all the time. And just to remember in the midst of this, how important keeping that level of connection, the chest to chest, heart to heart. Oh, I'm feeling that so deeply right now.
Yeah, and with that said, and I love that answer because that's like the first thing that comes to my mind too. I'm a part of a spiritual community that gathers like 2 to 3 times a week. I gather with them, and we are meeting virtually right now, but that is the one thing I miss most also is my hugs from my community members, like getting my hug bucket filled. And I'm grateful I live with my husband and we don't have to practice distancing between us. And I want to speak to those listeners who might have a different experience. Either they're living alone, or because they are immunocompromised, they are not able, or they feel like they're not able to connect even with their partners or spouses right now on that physical level. And I just want to say, like, I see you. And that we're talking about it right now for the listeners who are in partnership. And, thankfully we have that opportunity. And for those of you who might not have that right now, like even in the meantime, taking time to just hug yourself and to touch your own heart and your own belly and to just bring that sense of touch right there to that central channel of your nervous system to just bring some of that soothing to yourself in the meantime.
Oh, that's so good. I think of that practice every yoga class I've ever ended, where you're in corpse pose, one hand on heart, one hand on your belly, and connecting with your breath. It really is. It's not a two-person hug, but it's very much like a hug to yourself and just coming within and centering yourself and feeling connected within your own body.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And my hand is on my belly having this moment while we're talking about it, needing that connection so badly. And I love that you addressed that there are a variety of listeners and that there's a way to have connection, even if you don't feel connected to anyone right now.
Yeah, and it's funny because I'm also sitting here with my hand on heart and my hand on belly, and I'm starting to feel myself, just deepening into that. And when you were talking about it, I was like, oh my God, and it just feels like a hug from the divine also when we just make that connection with our heart and our belly and just connect there and feel the settling that comes. Like it also just feels like, the divine or source or spirit or whatever you want to call it, just a higher something just coming in and nourishing us, you know, which is so important in a time when things feel so uncertain and chaotic and out of control.
So true. So true. Oh, and I know that the majority of your work is with couples, which is why we're talking specifically about couples. And you created this online class, this workshop you're doing, turning into a class where my understanding from you is anyone's going to be able to access this class moving forward.
Yes, it's a class that'll be on demand, available on my website, and I really want people to be able to access it, you know, really simple, really easy, really digestible, because I know that we're all super overwhelmed right now, and there's so much information overload. There's so much coming at us, and like when I kept feeling like there was something that I needed to be offering right now, and in getting deep and connecting, I realized what people need right now is soft, simple, easy, easily accessible, easily digestible, and so yeah, the course is available for people who may have missed the live but want to be able to access the information, because I just feel like it needs to be accessible to as many people as possible.
I love that. So connecting in crisis, how to grow together instead of kill each other during times of uncertainty, it's a class that you'll have online. It's completely self-paced where they're going to have access to everything. And when time allows, they can hop on and have the information at their fingertips.
Yes, and my intention is they're going to be easily digestible, 20-minute-ish videos, because again, I know we have so much going on right now, and the last thing I want to do is give you a bunch of information that's going to contribute to the information overload that we're having right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Shirani, I'm curious, do you recommend individuals of a couple watch it, or a couple watches it together if that's available to them and they're both, have an interest level in doing that? Do you recommend that they both watch the classes and partake in that together?
I think it's totally open to however each family unit is going to be operating, because everyone's is going to look different. And if you want to make a date night and watch the videos and see how you can implement them together, absolutely. Like if you can carve that time out, do it. And if not, it might be one or the other of you watching a video and sharing the tidbits with the other person, you know, because again, making it as easy as possible right now. And if you watch it and your partner might not have bandwidth to do the whole thing with you, that's okay. Share with them your takeaways. And again, it becomes another point of connection. And coming at it from a place of, you know, not like, oh, you suck or we suck and this is why we have to do it, but like a place of, this is really hard. And I just learned some of these skills that can help us as a couple come closer together instead of, you know, growing apart. And I think that's really important also. But sure, if you guys can carve out that 30 minutes, let's say, to sit together and make it a date night, have that glass of wine or that cup of tea and kick your feet up and watch the video together, absolutely go for that. And if not, don't feel pressured and stressed, because again, this isn't one more thing that I want you to have to feel like you either have to do or feel overwhelmed about.
I love that. I love the idea. I never even thought of that until you said it. Doing a date night with it. I really like that idea. And even saying we can't go out right now, but we can stay in. And the pieces of your title, the non-laughing ones, the kill each other, totally gets me every time. I love it. But it's about connection and it's about growing together. That's really what the highlight is of this. We don't want the other parts. We don't want to grow apart. We don't want to kill each other. We want to connect and grow together. That's our heart piece we're bringing into our intention into doing the classes and partaking in this, which I'm so excited. I'm so excited that there's going to be like you said, easy, digestible, just something people can access right from the comfort of their home, because where are we going, right? We're not going anywhere. That we have the
Right.
space and time. And if you think about that, we are such busy people on the go that this might have been something we'd blow off, a month ago. We would have been, I don't have time to sit down and watch video and do any of that, or even take this information when we have it now. We're actually gifted time. That's my reframe on all of this extra
Hmm.
time, is we're gifted this time to do the things normally. And maybe even in a month from now or 2 months from now, whatever that is, we're going to again go back to being busy people. And well, I don't have time for that. And you have the space and time now. And I just think how amazing it would be if couples came out of it closer, had new conversations. It triggered, deeper levels of conversation instead of coming out of it the other way. The place people feel they don't want to go that way, but it ends up that way because they're not, taking the time for a resource like this. So I would just encourage all of my listeners, if you're like, well, we've been okay, or I'm starting to get annoyed, haven't said kill yet, but I'm getting close. I really believe this is going to be such a blessing to your relationship. And Shirani, I'm so happy that you've decided to create this, knowing there's a need for it right now.
Yeah, and I thank you. It's my honor to be of service in this way. It's interesting. A lot of people that I know are experiencing a lot more time and space in their schedules. And me, as a therapist and a healer and a helper and a light worker, I'm actually busier now than I've been all year because I'm connecting in with how can I be of service right now? Because I have the bandwidth and the capacity to be able to hold both experiences, or actually all the experiences, right? Like what's going on in the bigger, greater community and world right now? What's going on in my own internal world right now? What's going on in my partnership right now? Whereas there's some people who don't have that and are looking for the leadership of who's done this and who can help me hold the space for myself and my partnership and my community right now. So I'm just honored to be able to offer this. And, you couldn't see me, it's a podcast, but I'm over here like clapping and jumping for joy as you were just sharing what you shared, Jennifer, because you are speaking my language. And this is why we get along. Yeah, just about how this is the time for us to grow together. I mean, that's why it's in the title, growing together in times of uncertainty, right? Because even after this pandemic, there's still going to be times of uncertainty that come up. And there's still going to be job loss or illness or financial struggles. Like all those also trigger the same or similar feelings of uncertainty on a different level. And so the same skills and tools are going to apply regardless of if we're in a pandemic or we're not. And right now, because we are in a pandemic, everything is super heightened. And yeah, it just feels very aligned and guided to have this offering. Because I don't know if you've heard, there's new information coming out of China that divorce rates are increasing post-quarantine. And that's the one thing that I want to let people know is you don't have to be that statistic. Like you really can take this time to come together and strengthen your marriage and come out of this stronger than you may have been before. Because that's the other gift of crisis, is there is opportunity in crisis. And when we can really harness the opportunity, like all the time that we have right now, this gift of time that we have, we can really use that to fuel us for the future.
So good. So good. Shirani, do you have a strategy, a tool, or even like a thought shift, something that the listeners could take away from the podcast right now?
Yeah, I'm going to say, remembering that image of the fist, you know, Jennifer, just like you said, we have that with us at all times. And if we can remember to keep our brain connected with those four fingers, it will help. And the ways that we stay with our, you know, our prefrontal cortex or our higher thinking, higher functioning relational brain online is to be able to just pause and breathe. When you start to feel the blood boiling or the anxiety rising or the tension creeping up or that edginess, take that as a sign of, okay, I just need to step back. I need to step outside and get a breath of fresh air. And if that's not available to you, maybe I need to step into another room or I need to step into the bathroom, like wherever it is. And I just need to breathe and come back and bring my brain back online without doing a bypass over the painful feelings. It's okay to say, yeah, I'm frustrated right now, or I'm scared right now. And I'm going to breathe so I can come back online so that I can come from a place of love and connection to those that I care about instead of getting snippy and snappy and, you know, causing or creating damage when there doesn't need to be any.
That's so good. So good. I think just a pause is one of the greatest gifts in any conversation we can ever give the other person and ourselves, is a pause. Before we speak, before we do, a pause. That's so good. It's so good. I love that. I love it so much. Okay. Now, you know, before we can ever be done talking about this, I have to ask, I have this question I ask all of my guests because it's my favorite question ever. Is, Shirani, if you had a superpower, what would it be?
If I had a superpower, what would it be? You know, I want to say flying, and then I realize I'm like, but I already fly and soar, like in my own internal world and reality. So, yeah, flying and actually being able to like just flap my wings and fly and soar. You know, right now I have to do it in meditation. Like that's where I connect in with that vision. But I think that's what's coming up today right now is just there's so much freedom in being able to just get up there and soar and see what's going on. And I don't mean like hurling in a tin can type of flying. I mean like legitimately like being able to use my body to just, yeah, to fly.
I believe you'd use that and see the perspective. You're so good where you look at a
Mm.
bigger perspective. So I'm actually not surprised you want to take your whole being, your whole self, and go up higher to gain greater perspective, even because I believe that you would use that for good.
Thank you. And again, like I said, it's so funny because I'm like, wait, but I already do that in so many ways because I have that innate ability to be able to zoom out and go there and to see that. But how fun would it be to actually like flap my arms and fly around and actually do that?
I think it would be, I think it would be really fun. I do. I actually agree with you. I think that would be an awesome superpower. I actually believe you have another one, and it's in your writing and in your message of your book, Fierce Authenticity. That word is going to tongue tie me. Fierce Authenticity. Girl, would you be willing to come back on the podcast and dive deeper into talking about your book?
Absolutely. I would be honored to come back and share about fierce authenticity and connecting to that. Like that lights me up just as much as connecting with couples and helping them grow together also lights me up. Like I just have these two passions that work in parallel with one another. And so, yes, I would be honored and jazzed to be able to come on and have another conversation.
Yes, I'm already like excited that I'm not sure I'm going to be able to wait long to have that one and share it with everyone. I can't. All right. Shirani, how can my listeners connect with you, first of all, on social media?
So Instagram is where I'm really focusing my efforts right now, and people can follow me at Shirani M Pathak. So the initial M and then Pathak, and I know the links will be down below. I do occasionally stream on Facebook, but IG is my primary go-to right now. So that's where I'm engaging with community. That's where I'm sharing more snippets and tidbits of information, and that's where listeners can find me on the interwebs, or at least in the social media world.
I love it. And I love that you've been just so present and talking to your community on social media so much. Again, I just know you see the need and you fill it. I love that. I also want to mention that in the show notes below, we will have the link so that everyone can access the class, the Connecting in Crisis, how to grow together instead of kill each other during times of uncertainty. You can click below and get access like today. Like it can happen now.
Yeah, it's awesome. There, it's available. And my website, ShiraniMPathak.com, is also the hub for where people can learn way more about my work and all the various different things that I do in the world.
Yes. All right. I have all the notes below for everybody. I want you guys to access that class. Sit down, make a date night out of it. Grab a glass of wine. I love that. Grab a cup of tea, a glass of tea. I don't care where you put the tea. Drink the tea and take this class together. Make it time that you are choosing to press into your relationship instead of pressing out far away from it, and connecting with those that you do love, that you do care about. And if you need to right now, put that hand on your heart, put the other one on your belly, give yourself a hug in the moment. Oh, Shirani, thank you so much for this. And I honestly, I'm so grateful for the work you do. I'm passionate about marriages and healthy relationships. Like, you know, my husband was on here and we sat here for hours talking about things people wanted to know. So it's something we care about as a couple. So you doing the work you do truly means the world to me.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. It's an honor, and thank you for the opportunity to be here and share, and having your platform also where you can be of service and share with people who so need us right now. So thank you also for your work in the world.
Oh, you are the best. And seriously, I'm already giddy because we are going to talk again about your book. I'm going to have you back. I can't wait. All right. Until then, girl, we will do this again. Have a great class. I can't wait to hear how people and relationships are benefiting from it. Thanks so much, girl.
You are so welcome. Mwah.
Mwah.
Hey ladies, thanks so much for sticking around for this entire podcast. I mean, it was so good. Not only did we have a lot of fun, but the content is exactly what we needed right now. I just want to remind you that if you haven't had a chance to listen to my marriage podcast with my husband, it's episodes 23 and 24. We answered so many submitted questions, had a lot of fun, and yes, to answer the question that came after, we did make out in the closet. All right, ladies, until next week, be well, stay safe, stay healthy, and hey, you know what? Put a smile on your face. Hey ladies, did you know that you can find this podcast on Instagram? Just search Health, Life, and More for Women and come follow along. You'll never miss when an episode is released or any of the behind the scenes fun that I'm having. I would also love if when you're listening, go ahead, tag the podcast and I'll give you a shout out right on Instagram. If you're still struggling with knowing what to eat, if you're struggling with knowing, are you even hungry? Don't forget, I have a free ebook that I wrote just for you. Click the link in the show notes below or head to www.healthcoach4life.com. That's www.healthcoach4life.com. And don't worry, girl, I've got you covered for all the things you've ever needed. Just head to the show notes below. You'll find links to not only my free ebook, but I've provided links to all my social media platforms.